halfway, about 7,000 out of about 11 to 12,000 people on the network. So we're making progress. Those who have been, continuing to try and sync your nodes and dealing with those technical issues with the non-canonical forks and things like that. We definitely appreciate your patience, but we're getting there. Those steady updates that the developers have been pushing out have been making the difference, luckily. So we're starting to see more and more people get synced up, and more people, like you said, starting to earn testnet SSE rewards. One thing too that's really awesome that I was just looking at is if you look at our location map, just seeing how spread across the world we are. We have very large presences in all of the major countries, or major continents, I should say. And it's really interesting to me even to see it in expanding into more third world countries where maybe internet access isn't quite as prevalent, but it looks like it still has the presence of Subspace, which is really awesome to see. So thank you everybody for your support, and we'll just keep on building.
Yeah, that is great to see, Justin. And you had mentioned about like the bugs and things like that. Of course, these things are going to happen when we go into a test net. But there has been a new snapshot, I believe. So what are we up to, and what are we fixing with the current release?
Yeah, so the latest snapshot is the snapshot June 13. This one particularly included some frequent fixes to frequently reported issues that kind of resulted in nodes like getting stuck. One error that we were seeing a lot was waiting for farmer to receive an acknowledge archive segment warning, which basically means like the farmer's waiting on the node. So back to slow syncing was part of the core cause of that. There was also a minor fix with the voting reward structure. I'm sure you guys saw our announcement yesterday where we kind of dived into a little bit more detail about that. We pushed out a fix to that voting structure as well. There was a missing tag that stopped votes from being propagated effectively across the network, but luckily we identified that fairly rapidly and were able to get a fix implemented pretty quickly as well. And there's also the Subspace desktop version 6.0.6.7 is the one that matches that June 13 snapshot.
And one of the questions people often ask, Justin, is when it comes to updates, is it necessarily mandatory or just recommended? What is the kind of best practice there?
Well, mandatory, I guess I would say yes, in my opinion. In general, you're going to want to stay up to date, because anything that if you don't stay up to date, you're more likely to face bugs, in which case you're going to face downtime, in which case is an opportunity cost for you as a farmer. Meaning, you have a time of span where you're not gaining rewards that you could be. So I always suggest to stay up to date. It's one of those things where I guess necessarily these minor bug fix updates, it's not like you're not earning rewards on the prior versions, but you're basically just building yourself technical debt, which is never something that's good, especially when you're trying to maintain consistent uptime and things like that. So I definitely suggest always keeping up to date. It's going to be a better experience for you in general, and it's also going to make future updates for you easier, because let's imagine a world where you stay on June 10 and then you skip June 13, and then like a June 15 update comes out, and all of a sudden if you skip that middle snapshot, it could cause some issues. So we also want to prevent things like that as well. So generally try and keep up to date, especially with this incentivized testnet. Once we get onto mainnet with stable versions, it'll be a whole different kind of structure, in which case it'll obviously be much more open to kind of interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely. We want people to stay updated. There's been a lot of great fixes that have been put out, and this doesn't always mean, honestly, it never really means, except for in extreme circumstances, that you need to wipe and resync. That's not the case. You can just stop your node, put in the new executables, and go ahead and relaunch. And in 99% of cases, you don't need to wipe and start over again. That would only be in a situation where there's been some kind of an error that's been encountered, if you're on a fork or something like that. But aside from that, you can just kill your node, kill your farmer, put in the new executables, and launch, and keep on going. So definitely stay up to date. In Subspace in general, I guess just bringing people up to speed on what's been going on. We do have a few new additions to the team. I see Ryan is in the chat today. Ryan, hopefully you'll get to hear from. He's going to join us for the summer. You've seen him probably in the forum. He's been active in the chat and in the community. We welcome him. We've also added two more people on the development side. We've added one more person on the business side. So the team here is growing, and we're anxious to share some news about that as time goes on. We'll make some announcements about the team members. But we're up to about 20 people now, I'd say, on a full-time basis. And of course, we have more advisors tagged on than that. But yeah, the team is growing, so it's been going well. The community, honestly, is also growing, which is evidenced by all the people that are here today, and we thank everybody for showing up. And we're always looking for people to help. So people, if you'd like to get more involved in the chats, the chat moderations, if you're good at documentation, perhaps you have experience with some other proof of space protocols, proof of storage, and you would like to get involved, we'd love to hear from you. There's a lot of invaluable insight that can be gleaned from people with experience in these protocols, and the community would love to have you share. So please reach out to us if that is you. And of course, when it comes to the community, our kind of first line of defense are our ambassadors. And Diana is with us today. If we want to go ahead and bring her up, Justin. Diana is our community manager, and she is responsible for the ambassador program. So, Diana, I think you're going to give us some updates about ambassadors. How are you, Diana?
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Good.
Yep, we can hear.
Okay, great. Yeah, definitely. So let me share some context about ambassador program before we can start talking about how to become an ambassador. So we started the ambassador program around 6 months ago, and it has progressed through several initial stages. We analyzed ambassador feedback and took some time to create a solid foundation, a clear hierarchy, roles, and tasks for ambassadors to work efficiently. And this is why we didn't start recruiting a new cohort until we were sure that the program structure was ready to massive scale. And we hope that all of this will allow the ambassador team to work more efficiently and scale up to 1,000 members in 5 years. Yeah, so a little bit about ambassador structure. This is not a flat structure where anyone can grab some random tasks for a table and submit it and receive some small reward. We are trying to recruit the best people from our community and create a great networking for all ambassadors. So right now we have some great people in the ambassador team, for example, university professors, professional node runners, people who work in crypto full-time. So that's a great crowd and great networking opportunities. So yeah, and we definitely prefer quality over quantity. So for our next enrollment, we also will be looking for, best people, and we are currently looking for, 30, 45 people. And yeah, and I want to remind you, last time we received over 500 applications. So yeah, that's a really tough selection process. And yeah, I'm thrilled to share some great news. Next enrollment will start in coming few weeks. It will be usual questions about your background, your skill set, if you're contributing by helping others in our support channels, or if you are a translator or content creator, that will be a big plus. And yeah, the next step after your application will be an interview. And if you nail interview, and you can become an apprentice ambassador. Each apprentice ambassador has a mentor, which is ambassador or current ambassador. Also, each apprentice ambassador will have educational plan, educational path, and opportunity to become an ambassador or even lead ambassador. So that's really great news. So we are ready to start. If you have any questions about ambassador program, I'm here to answer it.
That's awesome, Diana. Thank you. And when these announcements come and when it's time to apply and so forth, where would they go to get this kind of news? Where's all this stuff going to be announced first?
Yeah, of course, it will be first announced in our Telegram and Discord, as usual in the announcement channel. Yeah, so we'll keep you posted, guys.
Perfect. That's great, Diana. Thank you. And before we keep on going, I want to again remind everyone, if you'd like to ask a question, you can raise your hand or throw it in the chat. I see one in the chat now that I'll read, and I'm hoping that maybe Justin or Wei, if one of you guys can get in there. Nerna Eth says she sees some wallets already past 200 TSSC, and how can they sink that much storage and gain so much? Is there some better way to balance this or something for lower level plots? I can say that aspect of it really kind of goes against the whole thesis of the protocol, which is that by pledging more storage, you're going to gain more rewards. So it would be very difficult to balance that and maintain fairness. And since consensus is really based on disk space, there's got to be some factor. You know, in proof of stake, it's tokens. In proof of work, it's processing power. Well, in our case, in proof of archival storage, it's disk space. But in terms of, I don't think we have any kind of a leaderboard or anything like that, Justin. But have you seen somebody winning a large amount of rewards or something like that? Do you have any comment on that, and what kind of a farm you would need?
Well, it's there's a couple things in play. So there's the first off, the first people to sync. You know, if you're number one or number two to sync to the network, you're gonna start. You know, or should I say, if you're one of the earlier people synced onto the network in a typical rewards distribution, you're gonna see more rewards than the later farmers. That's just what that curve, the mining curve, you know, where early on it starts off as, let's just say 50, then it cuts in half to 25, and the rewards get smaller and smaller as time goes. So in any consensus-based blockchain, you're going to see bigger rewards for those early adopters. And obviously, like Todd mentioned as well, you know, if there's a farmer that maybe has a very large plot, they are going to have a higher likelihood for winning rewards. Now, that's not to say we haven't done our best to balance this out in any way. We have block rewards, which is, you know, like most blockchains, which most people are used to. You know, you won the challenge, so you get the block, so on and so forth. But we also have what we call as our voting reward mechanism. So the way the voting implementation works is it distributes 0.1 test SSC for every vote successfully included in a block, and then 1 test SC for the block author. So basically what this allows to do is it allows the more farmers to win within one block. And it's a smaller reward, but it's at least more distributed. So instead of one person getting that entire thing, if your farmer also predicted the right block, but maybe even if it wasn't first, you'll still see some portion of that reward. We're still tuning this in, and there's still some changes we're going to make in the long term to try and really kind of balance it out and make sure it doesn't have any, you know, long-term issues or sustainability issues. But we are trying to do our best to kind of tune that, you know, wide distribution of rewards across many farmers. That way, it's not just one massive, you know, 600 petabyte farmer who's winning all the rewards. But obviously smaller farmers will also be getting some kickback as well.
Yeah, in some other blockchains, that's been an issue, right? People join the network, they pledge all this space, and then they're waiting months or years to win their first reward. So by adjusting the number of votes that are accepted, without lowering the security of the consensus model, we can enable, as Justin said, rewards to be paid out to people who vote. And in terms of who votes, as people know the way that consensus works, once a challenge is put out, all of the different farmers begin scanning their plots to see if they have the solution. Hence, larger plot, more solutions, better chance of winning a reward. And what happens with the voting is when that block challenge goes out, it's kind of like the horseshoes and hand grenades adage, like close enough. If you're within an accepted range, so you're close to the solution, you can be one of the voters, and therefore, as Justin said, you can get a portion of the reward. So hopefully you're at least seeing something, and you certainly will over time with a greater chance. Obviously, the more space you have, and of course, then there's the block reward, which is completely separate. So it's good to have the voting in there so that we can, you know, distribute the rewards out a little more, and more people are getting something on these blocks. So I hope that answers your question. And I see we have a question that just disappeared. If you'd like to raise your hand again, I'll be happy to bring you up to the stage.
Yeah, and just to add to the voting thing real quick. So our overall philosophy is more rewards, more rewards of a smaller size rather than the one-off reward that's maybe very large. So that way, hopefully, over time, the cost balances out more than, the lottery ticket that some other blockchains have kind of formed themselves into with their consensus mechanisms at this time.
Right, and this is like an intermediate solution, right, Justin? That in the future, I think when we go to more of a sharded architecture, that will more take care of this. But for now, this is what we've come up with to help spread it out. So hopefully, everybody is seeing that. So that's great. A couple other, I guess, just quick announcements for those who want to see what they've won or how many credits they have. Obviously, you can use the Polka.js Explorer, and you can see it there. But there is an integration that was announced last week. If anyone is familiar with Subwallet, Subwallet is a Substrate-based wallet application in the Datsama ecosystem. And they have recently integrated our platform into their wallet. We've had some conversations with them. They're a great team in Vietnam. So it's a nice little plugin, very similar to like a MetaMask interface, if you're familiar with that. And it gives you a way to basically, just kind of keep track of your token balances and so forth. So it's pretty handy. So it's a great thing to check out. Subwallet, if you have not seen it, you should definitely give them a look. One of the other things that we did want to emphasize is about just using existing commodity hardware for farming. We want to make sure that we're aligning everyone's expectations with kind of like what the fundamental purpose of Subspace is. It was meant for you, obviously, to be able to take existing drive space and make use of that. In our case, to run a farm. And by doing so, you can earn rewards. However, we wouldn't encourage people necessarily to go out and spend a lot of money on hardware to plot some kind of a huge disk. Now, as Justin mentioned, that can help you in the early stages. If you have a ton of space pledged and you can win a higher ratio of the rewards, that would be helpful. But in most cases, that is not going to pay off. So if it's disk space that you already have available, go ahead and pledge it to the network. However, it is not really recommended to go out and buy any new hardware. If you have a large farm that you would like to allocate, maybe it's something you've already got existing, great. I think that's fantastic, and we would love to hear about your experiences. But I don't think it's a great idea for people to be going out and necessarily buying hardware for this. So you should, just want to keep everyone's expectations well aligned here. So Justin, I guess moving back then into the farming and the node running, another question that we see quite a bit is how to tell when things are working properly, to what things they can verify. The log is on screen, there's the Explorer, questions about node and plot size and things of that nature. What are some of the basic things that people can check in order to just make sure that everything is, I guess, kind of set up properly?
Yeah, so excuse me. Obviously, any errors in your terminal, not including the telemetry DNS error. You may see the DNS server could not be dialed, telemetry.subspace, etc. That error is fine. That's just because the telemetry server is getting literally billions of pings a second from all the nodes across the world. So every now and then it just doesn't make connection. But beyond that, anytime you see an error in your log, obviously, is something to look out for on the node side is where I would focus, but also on the farmer side as well. You can also always check the telemetry server and see if your node is appearing on that telemetry server. Personally, what I do is I start the node, start the farmer, and then I check my node and farmer to see if there's any errors. Then I will check the node to see if I've made a peer connection. So it will show you how many peers you're connected to. Just make sure it's not 0 effectively. You probably want it 10 plus usually. It's kind of a good sign. And then I'll go to the telemetry server, make sure my node is popped up on the telemetry server. And then from there, obviously you got to let it sync up. But once you're synced, you can start to look for salt recommitments or signed blocks in the farmer, and that is an indication that you're actually starting to propagate rewards and things like that. And obviously, you can also always check the Explorer And if you have Polkadot.js or even the subquery wallet, or you can then automatically load your address, and it will show your address with the balance and everything as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of these questions popping up in the Discord still, Justin, and that's okay, right? We're encouraging discussion with the community and so forth, but most of these articles are largely being transitioned, isn't that right? To the forum.
Yes. Yeah, so we are kind of slowly we're trying to transfer our support, our official support at least, over to the forum, so it can be better tracked and better indexed for future users. One of the downsides with Discord, while it's a great chat platform and community platform, it's not the best support platform. You know, you ask a question, and then 40 other people throw a message, so then maybe the moderator misses, you know, who really should be next in line because they didn't see the question, or maybe they answer and need follow-up information, and it very quickly can get lost in that chat. And just with the influx as well, it's very hard to maintain. And then back to if another user faces that same issue, you know, they can't very easily just Google that problem and find that little chat discussion in Discord that might have a solution. So because of that, we're encouraging everyone to post new issues on the forums, and also check the forums for your issue as well. We're slowly transitioning to a situation where ideally the tech support in Discord will be peer-to-peer and community and ambassador focused, versus the forums will be more official support where you can expect responses from me, you know, in a very rapid time, and obviously the developers and everything. That's what will escalate issues to them as well. So we're still making that transition, but it is something to kind of expect as we move into these coming weeks here. It's because we want to really start making sure that future users have their issues solved, because obviously answering everyone independently isn't necessarily as sustainable for scaling to, you know, hundreds of thousands of farmers and things like that.
Yeah, just the FAQs in the forum I've noticed has the answer to probably at least half of the questions that we're getting. And I know how that is, right? We've all gone into something and you have a million questions when you first get started. But if people take the time to at least look through the FAQs, you'll have a really good baseline. So speaking of questions, Neptune has one out there, Justin, and I don't know that we have enough time left to read the entire question. So
well, real quick, P3 had
respond.
a question right before that. He said, "Can we add more space after synced?"
Yep.
So as far as your question, P3, ideally in the long term, we'll be able to adjust the plot size. But in the current stage, once you set it as like 100 gigabytes, it's set to 100 gigabytes. So if you want to make it bigger or smaller, you either have to start a second node and use that extra space, or wipe your node and resync to that plot size, unfortunately. But like I said, end goal, we will have that change to where you can adjust it as, you know, as you see fit, or add a hard drive or what have you.
Yeah, great. And go ahead. And then Neptune, moving on, about HHDs and about the sync speed and it not catching up to the chain. I wonder if maybe you could comment on that, Justin. I can't read the whole thing. I don't know that sorry, he meant HDDs. Not enough time to read the whole thing, but maybe you can just give that a quick look and see if there's something that we can comment on that one.
Yes, this is an issue we've been identifying. It's not that HDDs aren't not possible at all. It's just that they have issues at the upper band of plot sizes. So once you start seeing, you know, multiple RAID 0 drives and things like that, that's when they start to have an issue. You know, 1 terabyte plot on a 4 terabyte hard drive is no issue. That's how my farmer runs. But we have seen that users are starting to have these troubles. So we opened up a forum post. We're trying to gather some information about this. I'll send over that forum link to you here shortly, Neptune, if you'd be happy to, you know, fill in the information you have, so we can definitely continue to look into this and get it figured out on the farmer side.
Yeah, at the last point that you made, Neptune, about do we acknowledge this to be fine? We take all of the feedback that we get from all of you very seriously, and we really appreciate that you came and asked the question. So for certain, we want to try to work to resolve anything that someone brings to us. If we're able to make it better, and it's possible, we're surely going to look to incorporate that into the protocol. So it looks like we have about a minute left. If there's anything else anyone would like to bring up, that would be great. If not, Justin, I'll leave it with one last question, I guess, to you. And you had mentioned about running a node to run another farmer. There's been a lot of questions about that. People saying, you know, I want to run multiple farms. I have one node. Do I have to have a one node per farmer? kind of arrangement. Maybe you could just clarify that real quickly as we wrap up.
Yeah, so this is another thing where the current state isn't the end goal state. In the current state, you need one node and one farm. So if you want to start another farmer, you have to start another node as well. And there's some networking options as far as that goes, but ultimately that's the predicament. Ideally, the long-term goal is to have it so, well, ideally we want to remove the node dependency entirely, but at the very minimum, have it where you can set multiple farmers to one node. That way you don't need to kind of duplicate that effort as far as like computation costs and things like that go. But at the time being, like I said, you do have to do one node and one farmer. So if you wanted to spin up a second farmer, you'd have to spin up a second node as well.
Great, Justin. Thanks for clarifying that. And with that, it looks like we're out of time. We will be back again next week at the same time to take all your questions. Thank you very much to Justin and to Diana for speaking today. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody back here again next week. If you do have a question that you didn't get answered, you can go ahead and throw it in the chat here, and maybe we can get back to you. Of course, you can go to the Discord and post it in the general support forum, or you can post it in the forum. And thank you again to everybody for coming. And Justin and Diana, Wei, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Todd. Yeah, see you soon.
Ready?
Bye.
Have a good day, everybody.